Hi. Summer colds are totally a drag. We've all had them. This year seems to be a big year for summer colds. And natural remedies are your best bet here because you have this stuff at home. So I'm going to start with what you have at home. A lot of my patients are coming in with postnasal drip, kind of a sore throat, and sinus congestion. Really good for that is a saltwater rinse. This sounds so basic, but you just get really hot water, you dissolve salt in it, and you gargle in the back of your throat. And you can do that a few times a day. You always want to do it before you're going to bed at night. And that is really good at tightening up the tissue in the back of the throat. And this whole nasopharynx, I don't know if you all realize this, but I will tell you that in Gross Lab, when we realized that you can stick something in your nose and it goes all the way back into, halfway into your brain, sort of, it's pretty crazy what's going on back there with all your sinuses. You can put something this long through your nose, it'll go that far. So if you use that gargle at the back of your throat, that is where all that whole nasopharynx in the back, where our nose kind of comes down into our throat, that's where viruses are replicating. So if you do that, salt water kills viruses. It's really, really good at it. It tightens up the tissue and it just totally nukes them. So the more we can get some salt there to really tighten up that tissue, it's really good. If you have green tea on hand, there's some really good research on flu prevention doing that too. People really like that. You just make a really strong green tea bag and then you add your green tea, you just use a green tea bag. Then you take the tea bag out, you add your salt to that, mix it around, gargle with that. That's awesome. I use that a lot with pregnant women actually, because they get phlegmy. There's a phlegm accumulation. If you've ever been pregnant and you feel like all of a sudden you get all like the pregnancy mucus, you know what I'm talking about. That saltwater rinse at night really works well there. So that's the go-to is the saltwater rinse. Saltwater just is a really good healing, basic natural remedy, actually. The other thing that you probably have at your house, which is sort of up leveling it. So the first thing to do is the saltwater gargles. The next thing to do is a thyme tea. So this is, you probably have thyme in your cabinet. It can be culinary thyme. I always like to get the organic one. I mean, there are choices out there, but any thyme will do because it still has the healing properties. It's such a strong antimicrobial. And because we put it in our foods, and soups and broths and things, we think it's not good as a tea, but it's surprisingly delicious as a tea. And since it's dried and you have a jar of it, you can just take a teaspoon of it and put it in a mug and pour boiling water over it, mix it around and make a tea that way. You don't usually have to strain it because it will sink naturally. If you let it sit still for a little bit. But if you want to, you can always put it through a strainer. In addition, that also makes a nice iced tea. So it's usually just a teaspoon per cup of boiling water there. So what you do is that measurement, boil water, a teaspoon of thyme tea, let it steep 5-10 minutes. Then you can remove the herb and you can add honey to it too. Honey is a really good antimicrobial. And again, what's happening with our summer colds is we're getting inflamed in our mucous membranes, kind of up our nose, down the back of our throat, in our ears. I've had so many patients have ear issues lately. And so that thyme tea is a really good antimicrobial. It's quite astringent and tightens all the tissues. So that one's a really good one to have. You can drink thyme tea 3 times a day if you want. But those are things that you have at home that you can just jump right onto the second you get either the tickle in the back of your throat or the slight headache or whatever it is, you just don't feel well. If you want to get some natural medicines at home, one of the things we always want you to have on hand is black elderberry. So it's Sambucus nigra is the Latin term for it, but it comes in a syrup, which many people have the syrup at home and it's easy to use. I find that the syrup just has extra sugar over the counter. So a lot of times I like to get the elderberries as berries and you can buy them online. This is, prepping for fall or whatever, not for your summer sickness right now, but you can buy organic berries online. And again, you make a tea of it. You can add honey to it and you've made your own syrup. And I think using local honey, you get those extra benefits of the anti-allergy effect, and you get the antimicrobial effect of the honey, and local is so much better for you that it's better than the syrup. So you do a really strong tea that you boil because those berries are hard. You boil it down about 15-20 minutes minutes with the lid on your pot. And the ratio could be, when you're making this kind of a syrup thing, you probably want to use a good 4 cups of water and do 2 cups of berries. So super, super strong. And you boil it down 15 minutes, you get rid of the berries. You can put it through a regular strainer. I mean, it really could go through a pasta strainer at your house. And then you have this nice strong tea and you add honey to it. And then you can keep it in the refrigerator a few days. To really preserve that syrup, it has to be half honey, which I find to be too much honey. You just put honey to taste and keep it in the fridge for 3 days. That will not have a mold growth. So that would be safe. You can't leave it for like 2 weeks in your fridge unless you have a lot of honey or sugar in it to preserve it, because the water will promote mold growth. Anyway, so that's if you want to make it yourself. I think that the easiest thing for adults to have on hand is capsules. So getting organic black elderberry capsules alone, because you need a strong dose. A lot of times black elderberry is thrown into other products and that are immune system products. I don't really love those because I see the elderberry work really well as an antiviral if you take it often. The side effect people get is they'll get loose stool. Big deal. Who cares? It does have a bunch of vitamin C and this, that. You just stop taking it and it goes away. But if I have people have the capsules at home, I'm usually saying a dose like 2 capsules twice a day as soon as you feel like you're sick. And I feel like that's a high enough dose to really knock it down. So I do think you're going to trim days off this summer cold if you have a good dose of black elderberry. And black elderberry is a berry. So it's like blueberries, as far as safety profile. It's quite a healthy thing to take. You get flavonoids, you get those pigments, like a blueberry in there. So it's good for your cardiovascular system too. So I like that one because you just don't see the side effects some of these other immune boost things have. Another thing I really like to share with people in a general group is mushrooms. Medicinal mushrooms, super, super awesome for boosting your immune system. And they're good in salads and different things you're making in the summertime. So these are not the button mushrooms you get at the store, but it's shiitake, maitake, any of those kind of other mushrooms that you can cook in sautés. You can be grilling them. You can be, you could have them on top of salads, any which way. A lot of times we have them in broths. The medicine from them actually is water soluble, which is so convenient. So you don't even have to eat the mushrooms. You could just put it in a broth, cook it up, or remove the mushrooms. The medicine, it's a carbohydrate. It's dissolved in the fluid there, and you can eat that. You can also make a broth with a bunch of different kinds of mushrooms. You can even get them dried at the store, and they're kind of woody, chalky things. You just throw them in the broth because you're not really going to eat the mushroom part anyway, right? And then you remove them and you can use that broth to cook your rice or quinoa or whatever whole grain you're using. You can use that as the water there, and the medicine will be preserved. And you kind of get almost like this smoky, dank flavor with your whole grain that way. It's so good. And so that is a really good immune boost, actually, those medicinal mushrooms. So those are a few ideas of things you can just add into your life if you happen to get a summer cold. But I think this year might be a really unusual year in that most people are getting something in the summer, whereas some years we get away with not having that. So hopefully that helps you, and come back next time. We have some really, really fun shows coming up on how we're going to make you look better. So enjoy. Bye.